and in this video I'm going to be providing you with irrefutable scientific proof regarding the time of death concerning Tucker, Tate and Rolfe.
It was a crime which pushed everything else off the front pages. 3 men, all known criminals, found shot dead in the Essex countryside. It was a cold-blooded, professional killing. The victims had many enemies, but which one wanted them executed?
And welcome back to a new video on the Essex Boys case. As always, if you are enjoying the content, please do give the video a thumbs up. And if you're interested in the Essex Boys case, or simply true crime in general, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. Now, the best place to start this video is with some factual information on events which transpired on December the 6th, 1995, the day of the murders of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. It's in the statement by Linda Wolfe, who was a waitress at TGI Friday's restaurant in Lakeside, that she states the following. I cannot be precise with the time, but at around 1300 hours in the afternoon, 4 men were seated at one of my allocated tables, table number 50. This was a 6-seater table. I cannot remember who brought them to my table, but someone would be responsible for seeing them at the entrance door and seating them to a table of suitable choice. As soon as they sat down, Helen Smith, another staff member, approached the men and asked them if they wanted a drink. The man ordered 3 bottles of Beck's beer and a Diet Pepsi. I went over to the table and made sure their drinks had been ordered, and then went over to enter the drinks onto the till, as we keep a computer record of the order. I will describe the men as follows. One of them, whom later introduced himself to me as Tony Tucker, he was white, mid-30s, he was very tall and had a stocky build. He had collar-length hair that was brown, long at the sides and short at the front. He was wearing a black bomber jacket and had a mobile phone, but I couldn't tell you what make. The next man, who I shall refer to as Pat, was white, mid to late 30s, he was slightly taller than Tony and had a very large build. He had short hair that was greying but was brown in colour. He was wearing a long curved gold necklace outside his top. I can't remember his clothing, but he also had a mobile phone. The third man, whom I shall refer to as the younger one, was white, 26 to 28 years old. He was tall but not as large as the others, but he had a very well built physique. He had dark, possibly black hair that was very short in a French crop style. I remember he was wearing a very nice V-neck jumper, green and orange in colour. It stuck out as it was very nice. The fourth male I will refer to as the quiet one, as he didn't say much and seemed moody. He was also white. He appeared older than the others, perhaps late 30s, early 40s. He had a similar large build. He was very well built. He had wavy grey coloured hair, but I can't be sure as to the length or stubble on his face. He was wearing a bright yellow coloured nylon bomber jacket that was zip-up. The young ones said they were all hungry and they wanted to order straight away. Tony ordered the fajita baguette, Pat ordered mushroom steak, mushroom with a baked potato, the young one ordered pasta Santa Fe with garlic bread, and the fourth male in the yellow ordered the fajita baguette as well. Apart from the fourth male in the yellow jacket, the other 3 were mucking around and generally taking the piss. Okay, so let's just cut in here briefly. So let's just clarify what we've got here. We've got Tucker, Tate and Rolfe attending TGI Friday's restaurant on December the 6th. This is located at Lakeside Shopping Centre. They've eaten, they're having lunch. We've got Tony Tucker, who's ordered the fajita baguette. Pat's ordered the mushroom steak, mushroom with a baked potato. And Craig Rolfe has ordered pasta Santa Fe with garlic bread. Fantastic choices, sir. Now we move forward. Okay, so they've been there since about 1 o'clock. The time isn't precise. It's around 1 o'clock. Let's say 1 o'clock, 1:30. And this lady here, the waitress, claims that they leave around an hour later. So let's say that they leave at around 2:30. But the most important thing to remember is they've eaten at around 1:30 p.m. We now move to the autopsy results conducted by Dr. Paula Lanas. The first little piece I'm going to read out to you is concerning Tony Tucker. This is during the examination of the abdomen that it states the following. The stomach contained a small quantity of partially digested food material within which mushrooms could be identified. The tubular gut was normal, the liver showed post-mortem gaseous changes, the gallbladder, pancreas, spleen and adrenal glands were normal, the kidneys, ureters and bladder were unremarkable, the bladder was empty. Now, the critical thing to remember here, the stomach contained a small quantity of partially digested food material within which mushrooms could be identified. We now move on to the autopsy results concerning Craig Rolfe. This is again the examination on the abdomen where it states the following. The stomach contained a moderate quantity of partially digested food material. The tubular gut was normal, the liver was pale, the gallbladder, pancreas, spleen and adrenal glands were normal, the kidneys, ureter and bladder were unremarkable, the bladder contained a large quantity of clear urine. Again, the critical thing to remember here, the stomach contained a moderate quantity of partially digested food material. Now we move on to the scientific part of today's video. What I'm about to read out to you now is an article from healthline.com, a massive health website. I will put a link to this article in the video description box below. But this takes a look at how long it takes the body to digest food. It states the following. At first, food travels relatively quickly through your digestive system. Within 6 to 8 hours, the food has moved its way through your stomach, small intestine and large intestine. Once in your large intestine, the partially digested contents of your meal can sit for more than a day while it's broken down even more. Again, critical thing to remember here, within 6 to 8 hours, the food has moved its way through your stomach. That means it's gone through your stomach, past the stomach area, into the small intestine and large intestine. So if Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed at midnight, there should be no partially digested food in that stomach. There shouldn't be any food in that stomach. No food in that stomach whatsoever. Yet what we do find in the autopsy results are the remnants of the meal from TGI Friday. The meal which they had at around 1:30 to 2 p.m. on December the 6th, 1995. So as I say, it's imperative that you remember that time scale there. Within 6 to 8 hours, the food has moved its way through your stomach, small intestine and large intestine. So if these individuals were killed, say, 4 or 5 hours later, let's just say 7 p.m. for instance, as put forward by the prosecution, what would you expect to find inside the bodies of those individuals? Well, in 2 of them, we have a small quantity of partially digested food in the stomach, which is imperative because it starts at the stomach, then it moves to the intestines. But we have a small quantity of partially digested food material. In the other individual, we have a moderate quantity of partially digested food material. This is mirrored in terms of a timeline here. If they were killed 4 to 5 hours after eating that meal, roughly, approximately, then that is exactly what you would find inside those bodies. It would not have moved all of its way through the stomach, small intestine and large intestine if they were killed 4 or 5 hours later. Now, if they were killed at midnight, for instance, those stomachs would be empty. They would certainly not have the remnants of the meal at TGI Fridays recovered from their stomach. Maybe the small intestine, the large intestine possibly, but not partially digested food material recovered from the stomach. That's not possible. It's not scientifically possible to go 11 hours and still have the remnants of the TGI meal being digested in your stomach. That is not possible. So forget it. Forget the 12 o'clock theory. Forget the bloody Billy Jasper theory. It's gone. It's dead. The whole Billy Jasper, Patsy Clark thing, they're killed at midnight. In my opinion, forget it. Science here is backing up that they were killed at around 7 o'clock. You could say, oh, well, maybe they went back to TGI Fridays between 7 and midnight and had the same meal, or they went out and had food. But then my question to you would be, then why have they got a restaurant booking for 8 o'clock? Clearly, the last meal that these individuals had was that meal at TGI Fridays. Now, I know what happens next with this. It's obvious, isn't it? We're going to get Dr. Paula Lannas is incompetent. Dr. Paula Lannas is working with the police. This is all a big setup. There was no food in the stomach. She's done it wrong. She doesn't know what she's looking at. Something like that. Something along those lines is going to be the response to those who are adamant that they were killed at around midnight, because they have to clutch onto something, I suppose. But then my counter argument to that would be, if this is some kind of setup with Dr. Paula Lannas, then why didn't she just give a fake time of death? If she's lying about this partially digested food in the stomachs of Tucker and Rolfe, why go to that extreme when you could just pretend to take a time of death or get a time of death and create whatever you want? 7 o'clock, between 7 and 8. You know, why not do that? There's nothing here in the testing by Dr. Paula Lannas that tells us that she is lying about the contents which are found inside Rolfe and Tucker's stomachs. Nothing whatsoever. As I say, it would be a lot easier for Dr. Paula Lannas to come up with some fantasy time of death if she was, as I say, involved with the police in some regard. Now, just to give you another reference point here in terms of sources regarding the digestive system, we've already heard of the healthline.com article, and let's just take a look at another one. This is mayoclinic.org, where it states the following. The question that I put into Google was, how long does food take to digest? And it comes up in the top here. After you eat, it takes about 6 to 8 hours for food to pass through your stomach and small intestine. Food then enters your large intestine. So clearly what we're looking at here is Tucker, Tate and Rolfe eating between, say, 1 or 2 o'clock, and then 4 or 5 hours later, they are shot dead. That is the reason there is still remnants of food remaining in Tucker and Rolfe's stomach. If they were killed at midnight, it's too much of a stretch, too much of a long time period, as in, what, 11 hours? 10 or 11 hours? As you can tell here, at the 6 to 8 hour window, that food has passed through the stomach. 6 to 8 hours after eating, it's passed through the stomach. So if they were killed at midnight, how do we explain the presence of that digested food in the stomach? Right then, so to summarise in the simplest possible terms, because I have to make this absolutely clear to everybody who is listening to this video, exactly what is taking place here. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, verified sighting, TGI Fridays, the afternoon of December the 6th, around 1 o'clock. It could be 1 o'clock, it could be 2 o'clock, it could be 12:30. The time doesn't really matter. They eat at TGI Fridays. One of these individuals has mushroom steaks, mushroom baked potato. The others have fajita, baguette, etc., etc. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe are then found dead on the 7th of December 1995. During the autopsy examination, Rolfe and Tucker are found to have partially digested food in their stomach. Now, when you digest food, it takes 6 to 8 hours for that food to pass completely through the stomach into the intestines. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed around 4 to 5 hours after that meal, which adds up to around 7 p.m. This ties in with the autopsy examination and the partially digested food still found in their stomachs. Now we know that around 6 to 8 hours after eating, that food passes through your stomach into the small intestine. Yet we're supposed to believe that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed at midnight, some 10 or 11 hours after eating that meal, yet they still had food in their stomach. We're not talking about small intestine, we're not talking about large intestine, we're talking about partially digested food remaining in the stomach. If they were killed at midnight, their stomachs should be empty. You could say, well, maybe they went out for a meal somewhere else. There's no verified sightings or eyewitness statements of them being down a bloody Beefeater or McDonald's or, I don't know, some bloody farm caff or whatever. There's nothing. Zero. There are no witness statements of them eating anywhere else other than TGI Fridays. And that matches up with their plans for that evening. The restaurant booking for 8 o'clock. There was no need for them to eat other than TGI Fridays because they were supposedly going out for a meal at around 8 p.m. Now, interestingly, Pat Tate's stomach is found to be empty. This is how all of these three individual stomachs should have looked if they were indeed killed at midnight. But we can make some allowances as to why Tate's stomach is empty. He is a heavy lifter, a heavy trainer, a heavy steroid user. His metabolism is clearly going to be a little bit different compared to that of Tucker and Rolfe. Now, with everything that we've heard over the past few months, from eyewitness accounts down the pub to the Range Rover being seen after 7 o'clock and road rage incidents, people coming forward to the police 3 years after the event and saying they saw a Range Rover at the turnpike, to me, this is by far, by a country mile, the most strongest evidence yet, scientifically in fact, that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed at around 7 o'clock. Even if it isn't 7 o'clock, let's just say 7 p.m. till 9 o'clock. But logically, scientifically speaking, there is no way that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe could have been killed at midnight, not according to what was found on the autopsy results. Now, before I end today's video, I must give a huge shout out to one of the viewers of the channel who goes by the name of Zaphod. Hopefully I've pronounced that right, Z-A-P-H-O-D. It was actually him who brought this to my attention last night regarding the stomach contents of Rolfe and Tucker. And subsequently, since then, I have obviously done my own research. Also, a huge shout out must go to Essex True Crime, who has helped me extensively over the past few months concerning thumbnails and just basically discussing the case as a whole. Do feel free to check out his channel, which I'll put a link to in the video description box below.